Greetings and welcome to another Pokemon 2019 or Pokemon Journeys anime episode review. This time I'm talking about episode 103, so let's get to it. Before I get to the episode itself, however, I do want to point out that the opening was once again updated to include Pokemon that Goh recently caught. The Golbat, Graveler, and the Cloyster that he caught in episode 102 now appear in the section that shows Ghost Pokemon from the Kanto region. It's cool that they are keeping the opening up to date. But onto the actual episode now. Episode 103 begins in Lumiose City. Ash and Goh arrive at the airport. They soon decide to split up. Ash says that he will go to the Lumiose Gym, while Goh says that he will search for Pokemon to catch. Though Goh says that once he catches something, he will go to the gym as well. So Ash runs through the airport while the narrator tells us that Ash is on his way to meet Clemont and Bonnie. I love that they incorporate the requisite flashback into the background. This is a nice way to show us a flashback because they don't have to cut away from the actual episode, which halts the momentum of the story. Ash soon stops when he notices that a nearby TV screen is talking about Drasna from the Kalos Elite 4 and her upcoming World Coronation Series battle against Ash himself. Ash and the Pikachu are shocked when they see that they are talking about Ash on TV. And they even show highlights from some of his recent battles. Now I have to say that Drasna looks really weird in the first clip they show of her on TV. She looks oddly flexible and janky, which is funny. The TV then shows Drasna being interviewed about her thoughts on her next opponent. She says, Ash is strong, isn't he? Quite strong indeed. It fills me with joy. She is clearly very happy because she will battle Ash, and it's funny that this scene was shown during one of the previews for this episode. And I said that it looks like Drasna is saying something along the lines of, oh my, I am just so happy, and she does end up saying something like this, showing off her carefree and joyful personality. Now it's interesting that once the interview ends, they seem to cut to a commercial break and they show Diantha and her Gardevoir. I really thought that they were going to reveal here that Diantha is in the masterclass, but they say nothing about her. Since this is the Kalos region and Diantha is a model, perhaps they are just going to show an ad featuring her, or something like this. For us, the audience, seeing Diantha here is just a nice callback, and this is not the first time that Diantha has appeared in Pokemon Journeys like this. Though it is possible that they are showing her here to hint at the fact that she is in the masterclass, which would be very cool. So Ash tells Pikachu that if they cannot get past Drasna, then they have no hope of reaching Leon. The episode then cuts to a park. Goh walks by a pond and Grookey notices that there is something in the pond. This something turns out to be a Froakie. Now I was immediately like, oh no, don't let Goh catch a Froakie, please. Of course, Goh is happy to see Froakie and he throws a Pokeball at Froakie. But as is tradition at this point, Froakie deflects the Pokeball, which ends up hitting Goh in the face. Froakie also throws Frobbles at both Goh and Grookey, which is funny. Especially since Froakie has a good laugh because of this. Goh wonders what these bubbles he was just hit with are, and Bonnie soon appears. She tells Goh that these bubbles are called Frobbles, and that only Froakie can use them. Obviously, Bonnie knows this because of her travels with Ash and his Froakie/Frogadier. After learning what the bubbles are, Goh decides to challenge Froakie to a battle, so that he can catch it. The episode then cuts to the Lumiose Gym, where Clemont and his Luxray are facing a challenger and his Licky in a gym battle. It's funny that the challenger is wearing a Licky cosplay. Luxray soon defeats Licky with a wild charge, much to the surprise of the challenger. Ash then arrives at the gym just as the challenger leaves the gym alongside Licky. Ash and Clemont greet each other, and I love that Pikachu and Luxray share an electric handshake. Clemont says that Ash's next opponent came as a shock, since Ash will battle Drasna of the Elite 4. Ash says that his Pokemon are really hyped up because of this, and he decides to send them out so that they can greet Clemont, who decides to send out his own Pokemon for the same reason. Once all the Pokemon are out, the first thing that caught my eye was that Clemont now has a Diggersby, meaning that his Bone will be evolved, which is cool and a nice surprise. Now I love that the first thing that Dracovish does is bite Ash, and the first thing that Dragonite does is hug Clement, who is surprised to see Dragonite. Clement is then like, who's that Pokemon, when he sees Dracovish. So Ash says this is Dracovish, a rare Pokemon that was revived from fossils in the Kalos region. It's funny that Ash says this while still hanging from Dracovish's mouth. Clement says nice to meet you to Dracovish, and I love that Clement says this while Dragonite is still hugging him. Dragonite is just so affectionate that you can't help but love it. I also love how Dracovish responds to Clement's greeting.
Ooh la la!
Ash is then surprised when he notices Diggersby. So Clement says that his Bunnelby evolved. Now, prior to the return of other characters like Dawn and Iris, I did wonder if maybe some of their Pokemon had evolved in the time that we did not see them. But I did not do the same with Clement, because Luxray is fully evolved and I was confident that Chespin would still be a Chespin. But I honestly totally forgot about Bunnelby, so seeing a Diggersby was a surprise for sure. So Clement then notices Sirfetch'd, who is training on its own. Clement says that he has never seen this Pokemon either, so Ash says that's Sirfetch'd, the evolved form of Galarian Farfetch'd. Sirfetch'd is soon surrounded by a yellow aura that also spreads onto the leak. I immediately knew that this was due to Meteor Assault, since I knew going into this episode that Sirfetch'd would learn the move. Now Dracovish looks at Sirfetch'd with teary eyes, which made me think that Dracovish is impressed by what Sirfetch'd is doing, or by what is happening to Sirfetch'd. But Dracovish soon tosses Ash aside so that it can bite the leak, much to the surprise of everyone, especially Sirfetch'd. This reveals that Dracovish was not impressed, or anything serious like this. Instead, Dracovish was simply fascinated by the shiny leak that was swaying back and forth. So Dracovish is like a puppy that is enamored with a shiny new toy. Now I love that Sirfetch'd desperately tries to shake Dracovish off the leak, but Dracovish refuses to let go, and Sirfetch'd ends up exhausted. Ash and the Pikachu then try to help Sirfetch'd. It's hilarious that initially, Dracovish still refuses to let go, but it soon does let go, and it does so just when Ash, Pikachu, and Sirfetch'd are pulling with all their might. So, the three of them end up rolling back and crashing into a wall. This is a scene straight out of an old cartoon like Tom and Jerry. And it's extra funny because Dracovish lets go so innocently and without a struggle, which is in stark contrast to Ash, Pikachu, and Sirfetch'd, who were seriously trying to get the leak back with all their strength. Now I love that Sirfetch'd stands back up with a serious expression, like everything is normal, and it even walks past the Dracovish without doing anything. Sirfetch'd is like, I will pretend that nothing happened. Clement then says that Dracovish is surprisingly fast, considering its size. It's adorable that Dragonite is still holding Clement. Ash says that Dracovish has never done that before, and he wonders why this happened. Sirfetch'd starts training again, and it is once again surrounded by a yellow aura. I love that they show that Dracovish is still staring at Sirfetch'd intently. Once the yellow aura reaches the leak again, Dracovish is once again fascinated by it. And Dracovish bites the leak again as a result, much to the dismay of Sirfetch'd. Dracovish is just so adorable and lovable. Clement comments that this is almost like fishing, and I love Pikachu and the Dragonite's reaction. Ash and the Pikachu try to convince Dracovish to let go, but Dracovish refuses. In frustration, Sirfetch'd is like, oh, you are not going to let go? We will see about that. Sirfetch'd ends up pretty much using Meteor Assault, so Dracovish and the Sirfetch'd end up crashing into a wall, and they both end up knocked out, which is absolutely hilarious. This moment really had me in tears from all the laughter. Clement says that Sirfetch'd might be on the verge of learning a new move, which surprises Ash for some reason. I think that it is obvious that Sirfetch'd is trying to learn a new move, so I don't get why Ash is shocked. Also, Dragonite is still holding Clement. I guess Dragonite is just too affectionate to let go, or Clement is just too comfortable. The episode then cuts back to Goh, who is still in the middle of his showdown with Froakie. Froakie jumps and it throws Frobbles at Goh, who dodges them, and he throws a Pokeball which Froakie is unable to dodge in midair, and so Goh catches Froakie much to my dismay. Now normally I don't really mind when Goh catches most Pokemon, since at this point I am used to the fact that Goh will catch a bunch of random Pokemon. But a starter Pokemon, and especially one of my favorites, now this is not something I am okay with. I don't think that Goh deserved to catch Froakie. Also, if you exclude Cyndaquil, Froakie is the first starter that Goh catches that is not from the Galar region. I honestly did not think that this would ever happen, but here we are. Goh is happy because he caught Froakie, and since he caught a Pokemon, he decides to head towards the Lumiose Gym. So he says, I wonder how I get to the Lumiose Gym from here. Bonnie says that she is going to the gym right now. Goh is surprised and he says, really? Bonnie says, yes, it's my brother's gym. Goh is initially like, oh, is that so? But he is soon shocked when he realizes what Bonnie said. The episode then cuts back to the gym. Clement finds out that Sirfetch'd is trying to learn Meteor Assault, its signature move. And he says that it looks like an impressive move, even though Sirfetch'd has yet to perfect it. I have to say that Chespin looks really adorable here. I do want to point out that Dragonite is no longer holding Clement. I guess because Clement had to conduct some research on Meteor Assault, which he can't do while being held by Dragonite. Also, I wanted to say that Dracovish looks adorable here since it is sitting off to the side with a listless expression. So, Ash says that he wants to use Meteor Assault against the Drasna, so he hopes that Sirfetch'd can learn it. Clement says, I knew that you would say this. It's time for science to open the doors to the future. Citronic gear on. So, Clement brings out his latest invention, the Pokemotion capture. Bonnie and Goh then arrive. Goh mentions that he was surprised when he learned that Bonnie knows Ash, and that Bonnie helped him catch Froakie, who Goh then shows to Ash and Clement. I love that Pikachu and Dedenne also greet each other. Clement and Goh then greet and introduce each other. Goh mentions that he heard that Clement is a great inventor, but Clement says that this is far from the truth, that he just wants to invent things that will make people and Pokemon happy. Goh is then amazed when he sees Clembot, who introduces itself to Goh. Bonnie then gives Ash some Lumiose galettes, which delights Ash. Bonnie then runs towards Dracovish because she finds Dracovish cute, and she tickles Dracovish, which is adorable. She then wonders if this is one of Ash's Pokemon. Ash says that yes, it is, and that it is called Dracovish. Clement adds that Dracovish is a rare Pokemon from the Galar region. Bonnie greets Dracovish and she tickles Dracovish more, which again is very adorable. Now it's funny that I really did not find Dracovish cute in the games, but in the anime, Dracovish is one of the most adorable Pokemon ever, and it seems like everyone in the anime agrees, since Bonnie is not the first one to find Dracovish cute, and she won't be the last one either. So Ash and Clement decide to get started with Sirfetch'd's training. Sirfetch'd does the same motions it did before, while Clement monitors its movements using the Pokemotion capture. I do want to point out here that in the background, you can see Dragonite holding Chespin, which is cute. It seems like Dragonite just has to hug something all the time, which is precisely why Dragonite is so endearing. It seems like Pokemon Journeys is all about showing just how adorable dragons can be, with both Dragonite and Dracovish. Using the Pokemotion capture, Clement identifies the problem that Sirfetch'd is facing when it comes to perfecting Meteor Assault. Clement explains that first, Sirfetch'd needs to generate energy, and then it has to gather said energy in its chest. Sirfetch'd then needs to send the energy into its sword and thrust forward. Finally, Sirfetch'd then charges and hits the enemy with the sword imbued with energy. It's in the second to last step that Sirfetch'd stumbles, because its body wobbles when it thrusts forward, which makes the sword wobble and this destabilizes the energy, which causes it to dissipate. Clement concludes that fixing this wobble is the key to perfecting Meteor Assault. I love that Bonnie is looking at the Pokemotion capture and listening to Clement while hanging from Dracovish, which is adorable. Clemont then shows off his simulated solution, that Sirfetch'd should go from stillness into motion and from motion into stillness. If it does this fluidly and stably, then Meteor Assault will be very powerful. Now this image of the episode was leaked early on, and because of it, I assumed that Sirfetch'd's training in this episode would involve the use of motion capture technology, which indicated that Sirfetch'd would struggle with something relating to its movement, and it turns out that I was right. So Ash says that the power of science is amazing, while Bonnie wonders why Sirfetch'd wobbles. Clement explains that compared to when it was a Farfetch, Sirfetch'd is now carrying more weight, which is of course because of the fact that Sirfetch'd has a sword and a shield instead of just a leek. This extra weight makes Sirfetch'd sway. Now in episode 60 it was shown that Farfetch'd's leek is basically split in two, to form the sword and the shield that Sirfetch'd has. So I would think that the weight gets split in two as well, meaning that technically Sirfetch'd is not carrying more weight than before it evolved, unless the two parts of the leek get heavier when Farfetch'd evolves, which is possible since the sword by itself is about the size of the leek. However, prior to the evolution, all the weight was in one place, and Farfetch'd could use both arms, or wings I guess, to carry all the weight, using all its strength. But now the weight is split in two, and Sirfetch'd has to split its strength, so that it can carry part of the weight with each arm or wing separately, which probably leads to an imbalance, and this might mess with Sirfetch'd's movement. So Ash says that Sirfetch'd was still able to generate enough power to blast the Dracovish away. Clement explains that by biting onto the leek, Dracovish was able to stabilize Sirfetch'd's stance, and Sirfetch'd was able to focus better by centering its attention on Dracovish. These two things allowed Sirfetch'd to launch the move. Bonnie congratulates Dracovish for doing this while Ash thanks Dracovish for helping Sirfetch'd, though Dracovish obviously has no idea of what's going on, since its intention was not to help Sirfetch'd. Dracovish was just playing around. Goh then wonders if there is any way that they can help Sirfetch'd, and Ash has an idea, which requires Clembot's flags. I do want to point out that Lucario is seen testing its strength with Diggersby in the background, which is very much in character for Lucario, since Lucario always ends up sparring with other Pokemon in situations like this, instead of relaxing. So Ash uses the flags to teach Sirfetch'd the way it should move so that it can properly channel its energy and thrust it forward, without wobbling. Sirfetch'd follows Ash's lead and they both practice the proper motions together. I love that Pikachu and Bonnie also follow along, which is adorable. Clement comments that this is a very Ash way of training, and Goh says that Ash and Sirfetch'd have trained together ever since Sirfetch'd was just a Farfetch'd, so the training that they are doing now will surely pay off. While training, Ash says that when he watches his opponent closely, he ends up really focusing on them, to the point that he forgets about everything else around him. Ash goes on to say that if Sirfetch'd can do this too, then its sword and the shield will feel like they are not even there, and Sirfetch'd will be able to move unimpeded. Ash wonders if Sirfetch'd understands this, and Sirfetch'd nods like, yeah, sort of. However, Sirfetch'd still wobbles. That is, until Dracovish goes for another bite of leek. This once again allows Sirfetch'd to use an imperfect Meteor Assault, and both it and the Dracovish end up crashing into a wall again. Though this time, they avoid being knocked out, and Dracovish is even so happy that it dances around, which is cute. The surge of energy from Meteor Assault makes the Pokemotion capture explode, which leaves everyone with the classic puffy and burned hairstyle. I had a really good laugh because of this, especially with how funny everyone's expressions are, and how they all say what the character is thinking. Goh is like, why? Grookey is like, what in the world just happened? Clement and Bonnie are like, of course this would happen. And Dedenne is like, seriously? This again? Goh wonders why this happened, and Bonnie says that this happens all the time, and indeed it does, or it did, back in the XY and C series. So Clement realizes that he was right. Dracovish does help Sirfetch'd with Meteor Assault. Goh mentions that Dracovish is basically like the training wheels on a bicycle. Ash tells Sirfetch'd that its focus got better because of Dracovish, that if Sirfetch'd can focus completely on the opponent in front of it, then it will surely win, and it will perfect Meteor Assault. Sirfetch'd stands up proudly because of this, ready for more training. Clement says that battle problems have battle solutions, and he says that he and Ash should have a practice battle. Ash accepts, but he says that they should make it a double battle. Clement wonders why Ash wants a double battle, and Ash says that he wants to try out the speed and the resilience Dracovish has shown thus far by rushing to bite the leak, and by being able to withstand the Meteor assaults. Goh comments that since Drasna is a Dragon-type user, he sees why Ash wants to battle her using a Dragon-type Pokemon. Clement accepts Ash's request for a double battle, and he calls out to Luxray and Diggersby since Clement will use them for the battle. It's cool that Lucario and Diggersby are still seeing who's stronger. So Ash and Clement get ready to battle, and the battle soon begins. Clement tells Luxray to use Wild Charge on Sirfetch'd, and he tells Diggersby to use Dig on Dracovish. Ash counters by telling Sirfetch'd to use Meteor Assault on Luxray, and he tells Dracovish to use Fish's Rend on Diggersby. Sirfetch'd begins to charge the Meteor Assault just as Luxray charges towards it. But Dracovish is once again attracted to the leak, so it jumps in between Sirfetch'd and Luxray. Dracovish is then hit by both Dig and Wild Charge, though Dracovish is able to withstand both attacks. Sirfetch'd sees this and it remembers what Ash said before about focusing on your opponent. So Sirfetch'd concentrates deeply and it stops wobbling. This allows it to use a perfect Meteor Assault to absolutely demolish poor Luxray. I love that this perfect Meteor Assault has a close-up of Sirfetch'd's face at the start, which is similar to the animation Meteor Assault has in the games. It's also cool that Sirfetch'd jumps back like a total badass after using the move. Ash is happy because Sirfetch'd was able to perfect Meteor Assault, and Dracovish is happy as well, and it dances around just like before, which is again very adorable. But Sirfetch'd falls to one knee due to exhaustion, because after using a Meteor Assault, the user must recharge. Sirfetch'd's success in learning a new move inspires Dracovish to do the same, and Dracovish starts glowing blue. Clement tells Diggersby to use Hammer Arm to counter whatever Dracovish is about to do. Dracovish then charges towards Diggersby, and Dracovish overpowers Hammer Arm with its new move, launching Diggersby into the wall and knocking it out in the process. So, Ash wins the practice battle. Ash says thank you to Clement for the help. Clement says that he was glad to help, and he says that the move that Dracovish used was Dragon Rush. Bonnie says that perhaps Dracovish tried to copy Meteor Assault, but it turned into Dragon Rush instead, which is exactly how I interpreted what Dracovish did. Ash and Goh are surprised when they hear this, and Ash happily turns to Dracovish, saying that Dracovish got a power-up as well. Dracovish responds by biting Ash, of course. I love that Pikachu sees this coming and he is like, nope, I am out of here. So Sirfetch'd gets back to training, and I love that it looks at Ash with a shine in its eye. Like, I am just so cool, aren't I? Though Sirfetch'd soon starts to wobble again, which goes against its attempt to look cool. Dracovish once again tosses Ash aside so that it can bite the leak. At this point, this is just a running gag. Sirfetch'd does not even get mad anymore. Bonnie comments that Dracovish and Sirfetch'd seem to get along well, while Clement and Goh both agree that Ash's battle against the Drasna is looking very promising. Ash then runs towards Sirfetch'd and Dracovish, saying that he will use them both for the battle. The episode then cuts to the Castle of Chivalry, where Drasna and her Altaria are having a battle against Wikstrom and his Excavalier. Excavalier and Altaria clash with Fury Cutter and Breaking Swipe respectively. Drasna and Wikstrom both complement each other's skill. Excavalier then manages to push Altaria back, so Wikstrom sees the opportunity to end the battle here, so he calls for Fell Stinger. But Drasna counters by calling for Heat Wave, which Altaria uses to push back Excavalier. And, surprisingly, despite having a double weakness to fire, Excavalier endures the Heat Wave. Also, fun fact, this is the first time that Fell Stinger is used in the anime. Wikstrom then compliments Drasna, saying that her sharp moves are captivating and that she and Altaria truly move together as one. Drasna thanks Wickstrom for the compliment and she pets Altaria while saying that they will show Ash the power of the Kalos Elite 4, so she definitely means business. Now I was looking forward to seeing this battle between Drasna and Wickstrom, because I wanted to see the reason for their battle. But said reason is not revealed, though it is obvious that Wickstrom is just helping Drasna train, which is one of the possibilities that I listed in my preview discussion for this episode. But I was hoping that maybe there would be a cooler and more serious reason for the battle. But yeah, the episode then ends with Drasna laughing in a rather menacing and evil way, while her other Pokemon are shown behind her. So overall, this was a great episode. It was great to see Clemont and Bonnie again, especially because Clemont was able to use the power of science to help Ash, and Clemont even got to have a battle with Ash. A short battle, yes, but a battle nonetheless. Bonnie, on the other hand, brought some cute and wholesome moments to the episode, with her adorable interactions with Dracovish and her funny comments. It's cool that Sirfetch'd and Dracovish got to learn Meteor Assault and Dragon Rush respectively. Sirfetch'd was in dire need of an offensive fighting type move, since the only fighting type move it knew beforehand was Detect. And what better move for this than Sirfetch'd's awesome signature move, which is a move that I have wanted to see in the anime ever since Farfetch'd evolved. And the wait was definitely worth it, since Meteor Assault looks amazing in the anime. Dracovish also really needed a new move since it only had 3 moves, and it specifically needed a Dragon-type move since it did not know one, and given that Dracovish is a physical attacker in the games, I wanted to see it learn Dragon Rush or Outrage. Well, my wish was fulfilled and I can't be happier about it. Honestly though, the biggest highlight of the episode for me was the interactions between Sirfetch'd and Dracovish, which were also funny and adorable, on account of the fact that Dracovish is just so goofy, funny, lovable, and endearing, which makes Dracovish the perfect contrast to Sirfetch'd's serious, calm, and reasonable personality. I think that they are a perfect comedic duo, and they really did make this episode. Also, I like that ultimately, Ash chose to use the 2 of them for the battle because they both learned new moves, and because they showed some good growth in the episode. So Ash chose them for a believable and a natural reason, and not because Ash stubbornly wants to use them just because. Which would feel odd considering that he has other good Pokemon he can go with, which are perhaps more reliable. One of them especially, which would match the setting of the battle. It was also great to see Wickstrom again. It's cool that he helped Drasna prepare for the battle with Ash with some friendly sparring. This episode also did a decent job of introducing Drasna, and of showing off her unique personality and her skill. Now normally I would have said that I hate how they left us hanging there at the end, having to wait a week for the next episode, where we would finally see the battle. But since the next episode was released alongside this one, I only had to wait mere seconds to see the exciting follow-up. If only this would happen more often. Actually, scratch that. Having to review 2 episodes in a week is no mean feat. Though I guess that it is fine if it happens only occasionally. So yeah, this was a great episode all around. Honestly, the only gripe I had with episode 103 is that Goh caught Froakie, because it was unnecessary since this is an Ash-focused episode. We don't need to see Goh catch anything. And because Goh does not deserve to catch more starter Pokemon, especially not cool ones like Froakie. But yeah, other than this, the episode really was very good and very enjoyable. I would say that I can't wait to see the next episode, but of course I have already seen it at the time of making this review. But that's the video, as always. Leave your own thoughts down in the comments below. I hope you enjoyed the video. If you did and would like to see more like it, then please consider subscribing to my channel. I love Pokemon and I love making videos on both the anime and the games. Also, please consider clicking the links on screen so that you can check out more videos like this right away. Thank you very much for watching, and let's meet again in the next video.